It's fine.
That's true. And we're talking about just about this Moser fire, but you're talking about the forecast for hot weather for the rest of the summer. You can't just be thinking about the Moser Creek fire. The wider scope.
Absolutely. We're obviously concerned about fire all across the state. We've seen some outbreak. I'm going to have Doug come up and talk a little bit about that. But the challenge is that most of these fires are human caused and that each one of us can make a difference as we go out. I know a lot of Oregonians with the COVID-19 pandemic are getting out into the outdoors. That's a really good thing, but everybody has to be careful. Know your campfire rules. If you're operating machinery, we had a fire a few years ago that was caused literally by a lawnmower. So please, if you're operating machinery when it's hot and dry and we're talking 100 degrees, please be really careful. Doug, do you want to talk a little bit about what's happening out there right now?
Good afternoon. My name is Doug Graff. I serve as the Chief of Fire Protection for the Oregon Department of Forestry. We have been relatively fortunate this year with the fires. Our aggressive initial attack statewide, the complete and coordinated system, all players and partners pulling together in the same direction. We've experienced 1,300 fires to date this year, with just over 23,000 acres burned across the state. On a typical year in the state of Oregon, we experienced 2,100 fires, and our 10-year average is 500,000 acres burned. So we've done well, but as the governor identified, this is really the peak of fire season. We will continue to get tested throughout the fire season with the continuous dry fuels. So encourage that safety, as the governor identified, for all Oregonians. Relative to current fire situation, we've had 48 hours. The past 48 hours of lightning conditions across the state have ignited well over 100 fires in the last 48 hours. So initial attack resources have been aggressive and successful on most of those fires. But currently we have the Crane fire burning well over 2,000 acres out of Lakeview, and we have an incident management team from the interagency community taking command of that fire. We have 3,000, close to 5,000 acres out of Gentura, out in the range country. That picked up a fire yesterday. So a lot of activity on the west side in Opal Creek Wilderness, about 100 acres established in that wilderness currently on Forest Service. And then I just got word of a fire out of Deschutes County up on the Green Ridge, just outside of the Metolius, headwaters of the Metolius. So there's still a lot of fire on the ground. We have the next 48 hours of lightning potential and high winds that continue to push and threaten the existing containment lines and the establishment of containment lines on those fires I identified, and it's going to put more fire on the landscape. So our vigilance and focus on keeping those small will be critically important over the next 48 hours. Thank you.
Not to be a bummer, but just, I mean, is COVID, does that play any effect in your ability to respond to things, and how, I guess?
Good afternoon. My name is Mariana Reese-Temple, and I serve as Chief Deputy State Fire Marshal for the Office of State Fire Marshal. And one of the things that has been new to us this season is how we are going to mitigate the spread of COVID and its effects on our fire camps. What you'll see behind in most times during fire camp are those congregant facilities or congregant settings where we're together closer. And what we know is that COVID-19 does spread quickly in congregant facilities. So under the direction of the office, or the state of Oregon, the Oregon Department of Forestry and the Office of State Fire Marshal really took a look at what we can do to mitigate that risk. This summer you'll see what we're calling COVID modules, and those modules are assigned to all of our incident management team, and their primary function is to ensure that we are screening, monitoring, and tracking COVID and dealing with COVID if we should see that in camp. Some of the significant changes that you'll see this year is how we provide logistical support to our individual resources. So our resources are spread out in camp. They camp separate. That is anything from getting ice to sanitation facilities, all the way to sleeping conditions. And we're really trying to make sure that we're creating that physical distance that's necessary to stop the spread. The other thing that we are doing is wearing masks at all times, whether we're outside or inside. We're really trying to mitigate that risk internally to our own resources. And then the other thing I would say is that we know that when we come into camp, we can bring upwards of 900 firefighters to a particular community. And the other thing that's important to the Department of Forestry and State Fire Marshal is that we're mitigating the risk to our communities that are already so affected in this area, Wasco County, affected by COVID. So our firefighters are doing everything they can to ensure that we're creating restricted camps to help mitigate that risk not only to themselves but our communities. Our mission is to provide for the safety of the public and our responders, and we're doing that on this fire camp. This is the very first fire that we actually rolled what we're calling the COVID module, which is a health liaison, and 2 EMTs or paramedics with the sole purposes of focusing on that COVID response, which then allows our resources to really deal with what we're talking about here, which is the fire. And we have implemented the plans, and they have worked throughout this entire deployment very well in the fashion that we had hoped that they would.
Just want to say thanks to Mariana and Doug and your teams. They developed this COVID module. As Mariana said, it's the first time that this has been used in the Pacific Northwest. I'm really proud of the work they have done through the State Fire Marshal's Office, the Oregon Health Authority, and the Department of Forestry. I knew I'd get them all. To bring together, to work collaboratively to tackle COVID during a fire situation. So expect this will become a best practice, not only here in Oregon, but across the Western region, and really proud of the work that the teams are doing. So to everyone, please be careful out there. Please continue to be considerate of your fellow Oregonians as well as the beauty and bounty of Oregon. Continue to observe fire bans and practice fire safety. And in the meantime, be safe out there. Thanks.